Absolutely. And just for some context as to what started this whole Twitter beef, Briahna actually shared a tweet in support of Dylan Mulvaney. If you guys aren't familiar, Dylan Mulvaney is a trans influencer on TikTok. And recently there's this massive controversy over the fact that Bud Light decided to pair up with Dylan for basically a little sponsorship deal. It's not even like they actually put Dylan Mulvaney's face on the Bud Light cans you buy at the store. Like if you go to your local Price Chopper, Walmart or whatever, you're not going to see Dylan Mulvaney on the Bud Light cans there. What they did do was they specifically sent Dylan seemingly like one or maybe a case of Bud Light cans that had her face on them, basically just as a sponsorship deal. Like think about if some company, decided to do a sponsorship with the Vanguard, not that we would ever accept that, but if they did and they sent us a limited edition version of their product with Zach's face on it or something, not for wide consumption, not for everyone
who could turn this down.
Yeah. But just for us, just for us to show off to our fans. That's basically what they did with Dylan.
Montucky, if you're listening.
Hey, Montucky. Yeah, then they can be the next beer company to get canceled for woke virtue signaling. But so this created, this huge, massive firestorm, the likes of which clearly neither Bud Light nor Dylan Mulvaney could have predicted. It led to a massive culture war, and Bud Light got boycotted by a bunch of conservatives and a bunch of bigots for no other reason that they decided to, pair up with a sponsor who happened to be a trans person.
For a company to hire a trans person and then not publicly stand by them is worse, in my opinion, than not hiring a trans person at all, because it gives customers permission to be as transphobic and hateful as they want. And the hate doesn't end with me. It has serious and grave consequences for the rest of our community. And we're customers too. I know a lot of trans and queer people who love beer, and I have some lesbian friends who could drink some of those haters under the table. But to turn a blind eye and pretend everything is okay, it just isn't an option right now. And you might say, but Dylan, I don't want to get political. Babe, supporting trans people, it shouldn't be political. There should be nothing controversial or divisive about working with us. And I know it's possible because I've worked with some fantastic companies who care, but caring about the LGBTQ plus community requires a lot more than just a donation somewhere during Pride Month. And all this to say, bottom line is that if you follow me, if I've made you smile, if you care about me, I need you to care about every trans person. And I need you to support us, and I need you to stand by us. And hey, it's still Pride Month. So I'm going to celebrate being alive, and I'm going to celebrate the trans people in my life and the ones I haven't met yet. And I'm going to celebrate the fact that no matter how many thousands of horrible messages or news anchors misgendering me or companies going silent, that I can look in the mirror and see the woman that I am and that I love being. And
yeah, so that was basically just Dylan Mulvaney putting out a relatively, I don't want to say innocuous, right? It was a plea, essentially, for some solidarity with the trans community in light of the insane backlash for Bud Light, basically buckling at the knee, really just like folding, not taking any kind of a stand at all to kind of resist the pressure. Obviously, they're a capitalist, fucking corporation. They're going to be pursuing the bottom line no matter what. I think they thought they were angling, they were going to have both sides. They were like, hey, man, the data says pride sells, and so does having hot chicks with beer. Unfortunately, their audience or their demographic, is a little bit deranged. But anyway, Briahna Joy Gray weighs in here, and she says she's honestly just so warm and kind. It's no wonder she has the far right frothing at the mouth. If you had to pick teams based purely on warmth and general appeal, no decent person would go with the Petersons of the world. It's why she's seen as a threat. And yeah, exactly, right? Like, I mean, honestly, how could you possibly take beef with this, right? It's just, it's petty, right? It's the absolute definition of being a culture warrior, right? I mean, out of all the issues that you could take beef with, that we would have to battle with our ideas on, right? Like, I at least can wrap my head around. I don't agree with you, but if you're like, no, dude, like, I just really think that we should prioritize cars over high-speed rail. I'd be like, what the hell is the matter with you, dude? Here are all the reasons why high-speed rail is way better for the environment, for commuters, for human safety, for X, Y, and Z. But I could at least understand if you're like, hey, man, I just really like driving a car. I'd be like, well, that's a very selfish outlook, but I kind of understand where you're coming from. When it comes to something like this, I see absolutely no practical reason to get upset about this, right? Here you are just having a regular person living their life, taking a sponsorship. Do you know how many people that I don't really like that take sponsorships all the fucking time? It's just a fact of life, right? You're not going to be a fan of everyone. That's fine. Nobody's saying that you have to be the number one Dylan Mulvaney fan, but to just come after her for no fucking reason just because she's a trans person, yeah, I think that just reeks of bigoted energy. I think that's obvious, and I think what's the most disturbing out of all of this is that people take seemingly they like take an intense pride in the fact that they are bigoted about this, that they will just be like the most brash and the most disgusting and the most flagrant in their remarks about this issue, as if that's some sort of a badge of honor. So here you have Briahna basically summing this up perfectly, talking about how it's absolutely ridiculous that somebody would be threatened by Dylan, who's just clearly like warm and gentle and just like living her best life, literally just like sitting on a patio, having a good time, trying to plea for people to just like have regular solidarity with the trans community, which, has been taking fucking shit in every direction for basically all of eternity, but really ramped up recently, and then for Jackson to come out and just essentially just do the exact kind of hateful, bigoted, nonsense, and it's the same fucking line every time. These people, they have one joke, right? That's a pervert man dressed like a woman, probably early childhood trauma. Not clever, not a banger, not even at all related to a joke, just a fucking bland, hateful, bigoted, tired talking point. But what was your reaction to that?
Oh, yeah, exactly the same as yours was, Zach. I mean, he basically just totally proved Brianna's point as perfectly as she, would have liked. Just coming in here to illustrate exactly the sort of ideology she's talking about. And yeah, there's nothing clever about this. It's literally just a bigoted talking point that right-wing people say, anti-trans folks say. First of all, there's nothing perverted about Dylan Mulvaney. Definitely not in this video. Definitely not that I've ever seen. Seems like she's a pretty wholesome TikToker. Not really my thing, to be fair. I mean, I think Dylan's a little bit cringy, but clearly I'm not the target demographic. If I was a 17 or 18-year-old trans kid or something like that, I'm sure I would really relate to Dylan and it would be my style of content, but that's just not really the case. That being said, I find her to be totally inoffensive, totally innocuous, like most TikTok influencers. Yeah, she's a little bit cringy, but also, it is what it is, not harming anyone whatsoever. And yeah, specifically in this video, I think that her plea for solidarity and her experience, being explained in this way is very warm and kind, and it just completely flies in the face of the caricature that right-wingers, that disgusting bigots like Jackson Hinkle have tried to paint her as, which is some sort of a predator or a pervert or something like that. I mean, it's just completely and obviously not true.
Oh, no, I was just going to add that Christina makes the great point here that they've honestly had an insane Streisand effect. Because I'm not on TikTok, bro. I had no idea who Dylan Mulvaney was. I'd be like, who's that? I don't know who she is. But yeah, it just looks like, I mean, honestly, if I would have just been, I never buy Bud Light because I have taste buds. But if I was just walking down the beer aisle and I just saw Dylan Mulvaney, I'd be like, LOL. There's Bud Light putting a hot chick on a fucking, I bet they're going to wrap her in American flag. Like, that would be where my brain, I'm like, yeah, par for the course. Like, that's Bud Light being Bud Light. Like, not into the aisle to look for the craft beer that I would actually enjoy drinking, right? So Christina says the same thing. I know I'm an old Gen Xer, but I had no idea who this person was if it hadn't been for Bud Light. It's the capitalist culture war, 100%. She's just a regular TikToker. Like, there are hundreds of other regular TikTokers just trying to live her life.
Yep. 100% Christina. I mean, I peripherally was aware of Dylan Mulvaney, but I was nowhere near as aware of her as I now am, thanks to this whole debacle. So yeah, it's totally the Streisand effect. And also, I think that Dylan's message here, the one that Brianna's originally responding to, is just a great message about the realities of rainbow capitalism, right? Bud Light, this corporation, thought that, we can make some extra money by working with a trans influencer will be able to appeal to a whole new demographic of people that might not be traditional Bud Light beer drinkers. When they realized that that wasn't really how it was going to shake out, and that in fact they were losing money because of their quote unquote brave progressive stand in favor of the trans community, when they realized that wasn't going to be in their financial best interest, what did they do? Immediately dropped her. They immediately just threw Dylan Mulvaney to the wayside and let her take all of this hate and harassment without even trying to defend her, without calling on their consumers to cut it out or anything like that. So they instantly threw her in the trash. And that's a great metaphor for these corporations and their relationships with so-called progressive movements. I mean, the same could be said with any corporation and Black Lives Matter. I mean, when it was popular for them to put Black Lives Matter on their websites during the height of the George Floyd protests, they did it. But now that the slogan doesn't pull so high, you don't see it anywhere anymore. You don't see corporations plastering that shit all over their products and all over their websites. And it's the exact same thing with the trans movement, and for corporations and their associations with trans influencers. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, just, I don't know, I don't want to say broader trans news, but I had no idea this was happening. Gavin, did you see that this was going on today? Olayemi interviewed Laverne Cox. I just thought that was based as well. So, not to do like a hard segue, but yeah, that just came across and somebody had put in our chat, just in case anybody's curious about that. I'm definitely going to check that out later. And I suggest that you guys too, but somebody had mentioned that in that conversation, it gets brought up that the average lifespan, Laverne dropped an unreal, eye-opening and harrowing stat in her interview with Olay that the average lifespan of a Black trans woman is only 35 years. So pretty crazy. And the lifespan of all trans people is far younger than the lifespan of cis people. So, wrapping it all back, there's a good reason for somebody like Dylan Mulvaney to be coming out here and pleading for the solidarity from the rest of us, and then just ridiculous to see so many just like insecure fucking right wingers come out and just like be like, that's a pervert, blah blah blah, like the same fucking thing over and over and over. And we're gonna get into how disappointing it is that people who claim to be progressives, people who claim to be leftists, I don't think that Jackson Hinkle is claiming to be a progressive leftist anymore. I think he left that shit.